Hello again, whiskey friends. Thanks for joining everybody for another whiskey review. And today we got something unique to talk about, something you probably never heard of, but that's the fun part, exploring new whiskey. So, what we're going to talk about today comes from a local company in Covington, Kentucky, which is just south of Cincinnati, where I'm at. We've got Wenzel Whiskey. Now, this particular one is the 150th. I will go through what that means in just a moment, but the important things to see on this particular label are a blend of straight bourbons, and this one comes in at 111.6 proof. So, this is a blend and a very special blend. So, we'll talk about it, but for now, let's kick off the show. All right. So let's pour a little bit here in this modern Norseman only Dram Glen, or whatever you call these ones. I'll have to see what the name of these are. But man, Jason gave me this glass here, and I've become addicted to it. I love it. All right. So we got the Wenzel whiskey here. And once again, this is a blend of straight bourbon. Now, I don't know exactly the proportions or what is in this particular blend per se. Got a preview of it early on, but let me break it down first into what Wenzel whiskey is. They're a blending experience there in Covington, Kentucky, and when they sit you down, they give you four samples, one from different barrels. When Durrell and I did it, there were two Kentuckys, one Louisiana, and one Indiana. You can infer what you want on who those distilleries might be, but those are the components that you get to blend with. And what you do is you measure it out, you try to find something that you like, you experiment, you experiment, you experiment, you hone it in, and you write down all the proportions. And then if you want to buy it, you can then buy a bottle of your blend. And I've done this a few times now. I did it once with my wife and some friends, and that story leads back to this bottle here. And then I did it with Durrell because I was so excited about the first time. And I got all the blends up here. Now, we did buy 6 packs of my blend and Durrell's blend and continue to give those out to some of our patrons. And Durrell's blend continues to win. But we don't talk about that. Ultimately, I think my wife's blend beats all of them. So this one's the best of the trio. But really, really fun experience to make blends. And, we've talked about this before on the channel. I really do think blends are more special than single barrels. Single barrels are exciting because you get to discover this whiskey and the magic that just happened to happen in that barrel. But I don't know, sometimes the talent in finding that special single barrel. I mean, you're just the one that was lucky enough to be the one to try it at the right time when it tasted so good and pick it and be the one to buy it. But if you're blending something, there's an art to that. There is a precision to it. There's a purpose to it that isn't necessarily there with the single barrels. So I do really, really enjoy blends and the blending process. That's why I like doing things like this Wenzel whiskey experience. Now, the one that we are doing today, as I said off the top, is 111.6 proof, and it's called the 150th. This was a blend particularly for Molly Wellman's birthday. Molly is a mixologist here in the Cincinnati area, and she's actually the one that I got to enjoy my first Wenzel experience with. Didn't know her at the time. I was a complete tag along, but man, had such a good time that night. So then when Durrell and I were there, Griffin over there at Wenzel was telling us about how excited he was about this particular blend, some of the barrels that they were keeping behind, and he really felt like it was going to be something special. So just so happens they released this blend when Durrell was in town again when we did a bourbon trail trip here back in October. So we ended the trip with going to Wenzel, trying this, and of course, I bought a bottle, and now here we are. Now, the bottle was $100. So that's what it was retail. And typically, you're doing it with that experience as well. Well, let's get into this. Let's break down the tasting notes and then we'll get into the final scores. Cheers, everybody. Man, so many thoughts as I go through this whiskey and try to process it. There's a whole lot going on that I really enjoy, and I'll try to break it down bit by bit. I could see this one in general. You do have to appreciate and enjoy uh, craftier whiskeys when it comes to these blends because there is some craft whiskey in there. But if you can get behind that, if you've been acclimated to those, there are a lot of good flavors behind it. And I would equate it to essentially walking through I'm going to mess up the pronunciation, charcuterie board. Oh man, why did I try to say that out loud? But if you're going through that, I'm just picturing the dry figs, dry dates, just on the charcuterie board. You got prosciutto and salty meats. You even got the cheeses on there. You can kind of walk through it. And there's even like the bowl on the side there of like the dark honey that you can drizzle on your cheese and your crackers. And then they got the preserves there too, and you can put the preserves on there to add that sweetness. I mean, it just dances like that, just like a charcuterie board. Man, some crackers, some like rye grain crackers, like, oh gosh, it's so good. But for the most part, going into what I'm talking about, you know, the um, the sweetness is tamed. It does present itself more into the dry fruits, but we're talking about something that's actually more savory when it comes to a whiskey and it comes to a bourbon, which in itself kind of makes it unique. All right, let's get into the taste. Mm. Ooh. So while I called it the sweetness tame on the nose, it brings it on the palate. It is all sweet up front. There's even like a grape juice that emerges initially. Still get those figs, still get those dates, get plums even. So it's living in that kind of range, but it's all tied together by like a dark molasses as well. Oh man, mouthfeel, rich, oily. It's one of those whiskeys too that hits you on the sides of the tongue as it works its way down. Oh man, oh I just got so much date and plum on that finish. Oh, all right, let's go back. So mid palate is what we're going to go through next. Uh, so much going on. I've been trying to break down all those dark fruit flavors, but they are like relentless. Once again, plums, figs, dates, it all rests in that zone. I can't think of another whiskey that I've had recently that kind of has all of those characteristics so pure and so consistently. Man, that dark molasses drifts into a dark maple, essentially, maybe even into a dark honey. But that's ultimately it, with just all of those fruits, dark fruits hitting you with that dark molasses, bringing that sweetness, tying it all together. Whew. All right, let's get into the finish. Mhm. I think it really shines on the finish. There's a very interesting aspect of this finish here. Takes a left turn as far as anything I've been describing so far. I don't think I've ever put this flavor note out there on a whiskey either. But the finish reminds me of a vanilla chai. So if you were to get a vanilla chai latte, particularly a spicy one, man, that's what it comes out as, that vanilla chai. And it enters the party and it dances with those plums, dances with those figs. That dark molasses still remains. And then towards the tail end, it all brightens up into a more even flavor there with just this rich caramel. And it just leaves you with that caramel. just hanging on the palate, just hanging on the back of the throat. Ah, such a good, fun blend. Ah, just really, really enjoy it. Really enjoy the uniqueness of this experience as well. So let's get into the scores. So here on the channel, we do have a 3-tier scoring system, summarizing everything as a flavor score, experience score, and a value score. Whole bunch of metrics behind those three constructs, but ultimately this is a good way to summarize it. And it was pretty consistent across the board as far as scoring 8s on nearly all the metrics. The flavor score gave it 8s across the board. I think I gave it maybe a 7 on the mid palate, but then like a higher score in the finish. But either way, equaled out to an 8 across the board. The experience, it's great, man. It's got that depth of flavor. It's got some interesting flavors that I don't call out very often, if ever at all. The mouth feels great. Love the way it runs down the sides of the tongue. And then for the value, it did cost $100 for this single barrel. That might be a price point that is a bit outside of people's ranges and expectations for this pour, but I was happy to do it, especially supporting a small company like Wenzel, who's offering a unique blending experience and then releasing something that they're excited about. So in the end, it nets out at an 81 out of 100. Very good whiskey. I'm going to give this an 8 out of 10. Love more people to come to Wenzel, come to Cincinnati, and let's do this experience together. That'd be a whole lot of fun. We would have such a good time. So that gives us the Wenzel blend here. Keep in mind, this is particularly the 150th. As of recording in October 2023, this was at Wenzel Whiskey to purchase if you're in the area and you're interested. And they're always going to have blends there. They're just going to have different blends all the time. So if that one's not there, hey, try something else at the tasting bar. So thank you for joining me today, whiskey friends. Let me know in the comments if you have any other questions about this experience or about this whiskey, and I'll catch you on the next whiskey review. Goodbye, everybody.
Jeff, just be friends with me. But you have these whiskey friends, and you say hello again. Oh, Jeffrey, you should just be friends with me. But you have these whiskey friends, and you say